Hey people, it's time to talk about sex. So I wanted to talk about this thing called sex. We all grew up on some form of sex education. And now it's not streamlined across the world. There is no real way of knowing what we're being taught is even relevant to what we should be learning. My sex education consisted of birds and bees talk with mom and dad, like where do babies come from? And then also in sex ed in high school, we learned to put a condom on a banana. Now, this is useful information. It's good to know that it's on the right way to prevent some of the STDs or STIs, and also from pregnancy. But what it doesn't teach us is like how to connect to people. They're not responsible for the emotional side of sex education, which is a vital part when you are intimate with another being. I'm not knocking the fact that learning about sexual transmitted diseases or infections, however you have learned about that, and about pregnancy and the risks involved, that is all very vital information and we need it. But I think it just lacks this piece where it's not like I need to learn how to have intercourse with someone, but it's like, what about checking in with my body? What about being a yes in my head and a no in my body? How do I know that? How do I determine those things? So I think this talk is just to get clear on what's missing in an intimate setting for, I would say, the collective. I mean, we're not taught how to please a woman. We're not taught how to please a man. I know that wouldn't necessarily be in like school, but is there no person other than sex therapists to tell us, to show us what a connection-based intimacy looks like? Because a lot of times people get tripped up on the word intimacy, that it's intercourse, and it's not necessarily. They can be related and correlated in a fancy way, but it doesn't actually mean the same thing. So I'm really out to cause a shift in at least the conversation around intimacy and how we're sexually educated. I also feel like the masculine is predominantly how porn is produced. It's a very primal, mechanical type of lovemaking, if you can even call it that in some regard. And there are some sensual, more slowed down, tantric type things that are displayed, but it doesn't leave room to the imagination either. Now, I'm not knocking pornography entirely. There are things such as porn addictions that are not great, and I would recommend highly, don't have to take what I say for face value, but I would recommend not using pornography to please yourself every single time. We all have the times where we just want to get a nice orgasm going and it makes us feel good in the body, but there's also times where we want to slow down. Now, depending on the type of pornography, it can be beneficial in some ways if we utilize it correctly. So I'm saying not to use it every single time for a quick fix, an instant gratification, more or less, is what I'm getting at. This creates a lot of disconnect in the brain, for first and foremost, and also a lot of disconnect in the body. We don't relate to our bodies. We don't understand how they necessarily work. The amount of women that I have spoken to that don't even know their own anatomy is astonishing. How in the world is a man supposed to please a woman if the woman doesn't know how to please herself without porn, without any other outside stimulation other than self and hands? Vibrators and toys are fine. I don't personally use them all the time because I find vibration sometimes, depending on the area of the vagina, will lessen the sensation when you're skin to skin and intimate with someone. That's just a personal preference. I'm not saying that for anyone else. But it's just really interesting to me to know that we're so disconnected to our own bodies and our own ways of being in an intimate setting that we don't know how to connect to other people. We don't communicate. We don't speak up when something doesn't feel right because we don't want to upset the other person. And now that happens in and outside of the bedroom, as you probably can guess. If you just pause for a moment and think about those times where you're like, oh, damn, like I should have spoke up in this situation. Maybe it's at work at a meeting. And if you had said what you were going to say, which is speaking your truth, might have actually changed a lot of things that weren't working in the office or in that particular project, what have you. But same goes for in the bedroom. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to like make them feel bad that they're not touching me properly, or I don't want them to think that I don't love them, or like all these things are going on in the brain. And what we really want to start noticing is how we feel sensationally in the body, because our sensations in the body are actually going to tell us or indicate more things as far as yay or nay in the bedroom than thinking about it ever will. And this would actually help you in everyday life when we're thinking about a situation, rather than just taking action and speaking up with your truth. You have all the reasons and considerations of why not, or how something can't happen, when in reality, it's very, very simple. So why are we complicating it? Why are we complicating how to reach orgasm? Why are we complicating spending time with a loved one? Why are we complicating spending time on ourselves? Sometimes we're fear-driven. Sometimes we heard something sometime, somewhere, and we think that's going to happen to us now. Even pornography will suggest things, and you're just like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, which also creates expectations. The more we can actually utilize visualization or imagination. Do you remember that when we were kids, we would use imagination all the time? We might have had an imaginary friend. But seriously, what if intentionally thinking about what we want to have inside of our intimate setting, whether that's with yourself or with a partner or with a group. Hey, orgies are cool, man. Like, explore all you want. Polyamory is beautiful. But could you imagine what would happen if we were tapped in and tuned into our bodies, knowing what sensations make us feel good, having our parasympathetic at a neutral zone, meaning our rest and digest is like calm as all calm can be, so no stress determining how this particular intimate time will go, and just fully embracing, like, even if you don't reach orgasm, it's like feeling every sensation in your body. You may or may not connect to the person across from you. Sometimes I like to do mirror work, even with sexuality, because you get to know yourself that much more closely and also more in a vulnerable state. And you can watch yourself, and there's nothing creepy about that, by the way. If you have this little notion that it might be creepy, there are things that we can do to make it seem not so creepy. But I really want to invite people to start to understand about slowing down, taking yourself out of the brain and feeling into the body, and using your intuition to know how to connect to this other person. Now, communication is a whole other game, where you need to know how to communicate to yourself first, and then also how to communicate to the other person. You don't want to just like barrel in there and be like, this is what I need, and blah, and demand, and like expect this is how it's going to go. You speak your desires calmly, not having an expectation that those desires will be fulfilled on. But if we have an intention behind it all, meaning we intend to feel happy, we intend to feel blissful, we intend to da-da-da-da. It doesn't matter how that happens, the intention still can be fulfilled on many different ways, as opposed to having a goal. So really thinking about, what did I learn growing up about sex? Was there any shame present? Did your parents have an open discussion about it? Was it maybe closed off? Was it something that was swept under the rug? All these things can really point towards what happened growing up to make you feel and think the way you do now. We may not have had the chance to even think about these things, but they are shaping our life, our perspective on the whole world itself. Why not have it also be directly linked to the way we are when we're intimate? Because intimacy is a way of being, and we're all human beings. You can technically be taught all the different things, how to go clockwise or counterclockwise, or how slow or fast or hard to be with the intimate parts of yourself. But do we really understand the feeling, the connection piece, that feeling of overall whole body bliss? And start to wonder what it's like to have a more delayed gratification rather than an instant gratification. And we're all different. We're all different sizes and shapes. We're all different perspectives, all different upbringings, beliefs. So until we can actually have an open-ended conversation and communication about what goes on in our head, what our expectation out here is, we really can't connect to the other person. So in this video, it's my invitation to you. Again, don't have to take this on if it doesn't resonate, but get curious with yourself first. What is my actual beliefs around sex and intimacy? From there, what am I possibly going to shift or change moving forward to have deeper connections with myself and deeper connections with others when it is time to be intimate? And intimacy doesn't need to lead to sex. I really want to stress this point because people are so afraid if they get sensual or like touchy-feely with someone or even suggesting a cuddle that it has to lead to sex. It doesn't. You can be a yes in 1 minute and a no in the next. So every stage, does this work for you? Yes. Does this work for you? Yes. You can probably tell when you touch a part of a body and the response is, oh, and you can hear it. You can feel the energy being a yes. So I want you to really be honest with yourself, not being a yes in your brain because that's what you want, but being a yes in your body because you feel the resonance from that other person or yourself. Even when I'm like, oh, I'm going to like self-please myself this evening, self-love, because I deserve that. But then it comes time and I'm just like, you know what? My body is not wanting that. Instead, I go have a bath. That is intimate for me. To just be in the sudsy, warm water. Maybe you can get a little frisky in there. That's not a problem either. But really breaking it down and feeling into the body, knowing your body will always tell you what is a go and what is not. So any comments you have, any discussions that you want to elaborate on in this kind of context around sex education, intimacy, connection, I would love to know your feedback. I would love to know everything. Let me know. Like this video, share to the world, because until we start having conversation, we really can't change anything. So I'm signing off. I hope you guys have an amazing day. You folks, I should say. Hope you have an amazing day, and we will catch you later.